Wisdom. It's an incredibly valuable asset. Some would say more precious than gold. It's attractive, appealing, admirable. Conversely, a lack of wisdom is the basis of immaturity, blind spots, and bad decisions. Wisdom. It can be gained over time, but it can't be rushed. But wisdom can be shared. That's precisely what we are here to do right now. Today, we are here to hack wisdom, to distill it, to understand it, and to process it. Why? To get better at life. Welcome to the main thing. This is your new 9-minute podcast. I'm your host, Skip Lineberg, and I've set out to interview the wisest people I know. We'll see what we can learn from each one when they're faced with an incredibly difficult, soul-piercing question. Welcome to the Main Thing podcast. If it's your first time here, I'm Skip Lineberg, and I'll be your host today. A big warm hello. So glad you're here with us. Each episode, we bring you a concise, high-impact wisdom lesson from one of the wisest people I know. Studying their wisdom and learning together, we all get just a little bit better at this thing called life. Today, you'll hear from my good friend, healthcare and business lawyer Bob Coffield. Ever had someone turn you down, then change their mind? That's what happened with Bob. He initially declined my invitation to be a guest on this show. Then, very recently, after about 2 years had gone by, he said yes. Saying yes. I think there's a lesson there, but that's a story for another day, or perhaps for a newsletter. Bob Coffield is a creative thinker, an innovator, and a superconnector. He has the gift of seeing what's possible and connecting the dots. I learned things from my friend Bob Coffield, and you will too. Listening to our wisdom conversation today, you'll come away with powerful insights regarding the importance of relationships, why big ideas are meant to be shared, not hoarded or guarded, why it's vital to continue to learn, and you'll learn about the lasting impact of a mentor on one's life. Before I bring Bob on mic with us, I want to encourage you to head over to our website, themainthingpodcast.com. Once there, you'll be able to access the many wisdom resources we bring you to help you grow and increase in wisdom. This includes our twice-monthly wisdom newsletter, plus much, much more. Now, here's a bit more about our wise guest. Bob Coffield is a partner at Nelson Mullins. He's a seasoned healthcare and business lawyer with a national practice. Bob's client base includes health systems, hospitals, physician groups, health technology companies, and other national and regional healthcare providers. Outside the office, Bob enjoys running, especially park run, music, especially live music, as well as travel, food, and history. He's the father of 2. Bob and his wife Suzanne reside in Charleston, West Virginia. Now settle in and get ready for a big dose of wisdom and a big heaping helping of encouragement. Over the next several minutes, you will discover why Bob Coffield is one of the wisest people I know. Bob Coffield, welcome to the Main Thing podcast.
Thank you very much, Skip.
Bob, we've been friends for a long time. I really appreciate you as a friend because you're so curious about the world and also so connected. And in fact, there's this thing called the Coffield Effect that our mutual friend Andy Malinowski coined the phrase. Here's the definition of the Coffield Effect: a property of life by which all things and people in the universe are linked in a manner that can lead to an unpredictable and unexpected yet pleasantly surprising connection across demographic, geographic, and time continuums. And it all links back to you most of the time.
The world's a small place.
And I took that and I made an adjective. Coffieldesque is the joyful feeling one has during the epiphany felt while experiencing the Coffield Effect. So I had a Coffield-esque moment. Let me give you a couple examples. See if you remember these. Okay, so first, I get a Twitter. You either tag me or direct message me on Twitter. sent me a Spotify link, and you say, here, Skip, check this out. This guy's building this amazing playlist, and it's being crowdsourced, but the songs that people are putting in are just all the good songs that you want to hear. And so it turned out to be like the world's greatest playlist. It was totally crowdsourced, and you turned me on to that.
Cool.
And so from Andy Malinowski, who's a frequent guest on the show, he shares this Coffieldesque moment. He's working at Frontier. He gets a call from you. You're at a cemetery in New Martinsville. And who knew, but by law, all cemeteries have to have one phone line, at least one phone line. So Andy's working for the phone company. You call Andy, and all of a sudden we're working on getting the phone line fixed or repaired to the cemetery in New Martinsville.
Switched over was the question. Connection.
There we go. So from that, it all ties back to the Coffield Effect. And I'm playfully poking at that a little bit, but that's one of the things that we love about you, is that you have all these connections, and your curious approach to the world. You like to share things.
Yeah, curiosity, I think, is something that drives me all the time with both people and things. And, it connects us all together. And I find comfort in that when I'm meeting people, when I'm trying to introduce people, making those connections to feel people, are closer to each other then.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love it. Yeah, that's neat. So as I said, we've been friends for decades. I remember, you can chime in and we'll help tell this story together, but right behind us, where we're recording in the Kanawha County Public Library in a gorgeous space, one block behind us is Capitol Street. And I started working on Capitol Street circa 2001. Maple Creative was on Capitol Street. Flaherty
I started
Law Firm.
there in 2001.
Okay. So we would see each other on Capitol Street, and it was such a fun place to work back then, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think, you asked, when did we first meet? I started to think about that, and I thought, I think it's because you were doing some branding for lawyers and law firms, and through Maple Creative.
Right.
And that's probably the first connection that you and I made together.
Yeah. Flaherty was looking for some help on some branding, and we eventually did some work for you guys.
Yeah.
Bob, let's help our audience understand your day job, what you do by day. You are a very respected and experienced healthcare attorney. Tell us a little bit about your practice.
Yeah. I came out and started practicing, I've been practicing for 30 years, started in the early 90s, really as a business and transactional lawyer.
Okay.
So doing a lot of deal work, those sorts of things. Actually worked a lot in the coal, oil, and gas area in the first 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, okay.
And then started to pick up some healthcare-oriented matters, and that really grew. I went to the West Virginia Healthcare Authority and went in-house as a counsel for a couple years, got more experience there, and then rolled out. And really a large component of my practice from 2000 on has been healthcare, what I call regulatory lawyer, transactional lawyer, and technology lawyer. So my practice largely centers around that. And that's representing a variety of healthcare providers over the years. I recently made a change. I'd practiced here in Charleston with a local firm, Flaherty, Sensabaugh, Manasseh, and recently, earlier this year, have moved to Nelson Mullins, which is a large AM 100 law firm with offices throughout the U.S. And so I'm connected with that group and continuing to do that work both here in Charleston, kind of remotely with serving sometime in the Raleigh, North Carolina office, along with the Huntington, West Virginia office of Nelson Mullins.
Yeah.
So
big change.
Yeah. And I got into healthcare, really as a result. One, both my dad and uncle were physicians, old country doctors from Wetzel County,
they
from
carried
the
the
New
bag.
Martinsville area. Actually, my grandfather, who was also a physician from the turn of the century, early 1900s up to 1936, he actually rode his horse. And we have his his medical bags that hung over the top of the horse. So,
oh, wow.
So I come to healthcare with that background,
Yeah.
and I found that interesting. And honestly, the driver, I remember a time, probably late 90s, as I was doing, again, transactional work. I went to something related to healthcare.
192 extra minutes of wisdom. That's what you get when you become a patron of the Main Thing podcast. Many of you continue to say, we want to hear more from these wise guests. That's precisely what patrons of our podcast get. Exclusive access to bonus episodes called The Whole Thing. These 30-minute special shows bring you a deeper dive into our guests' wisdom. Less editing, more laughter. Less time limits, more stories. Unlock those 192 extra minutes of wisdom for yourself for as little as $9 per month through the Patreon platform. And when you become a patron, you also get access to wisdom essays, behind-the-scenes glimpses, and access to special patron-only wisdom gatherings. Head over to patreon.com/themainthingpodcast. Go unlock your 192 extra minutes of wisdom. Bob, that brings us to the pivotal moment in our show where I'm going to ask you the question that I've asked each and every wise guest that's sat across from me with the microphone. Bob Coffield, what's the main thing you've learned in your lifetime so far?
Skip, the main thing I've learned in my lifetime so far is to smile deep.
Ooh, smile deep. That's intriguing, Bob. Would you unpack that for us and take us inside the meaning of that phrase?
It's a phrase that's from a college friend, Paul Ace Hayward,
okay,
who went to Bethany College with me. He was older than I was. And so he coined the term, and he gave this gift of a phrase to me and to multiple other people, a simple bit of wisdom. Mm-hmm. And, what the meaning of it is really, what you receive. And it was one of many phrases that he had. He played soccer at Bethany College. He's originally from Canada.
Okay.
Came there, and Ace was a great soccer player, Division III. Those were the early days of Bethany College's kind of soccer rise.
Bob, was he faculty or a classmate?
No, he was 2 years older than I was.
Okay.
But he then stuck around because he became a graduate assistant. So he was around and knew him through that process. He went on to coach NCAA soccer.
Soccer, okay.
Continue in that course. Ultimately moved to Anna Maria Island down in Florida and continued to coach down there and was a community member. But was diagnosed with cancer. And really during...
Recently or back then?
Back then.
Oh, wow.
So this ties back into kind of the social media piece, too.
Okay.
And, he went through a struggle with cancer. And, this is someone who had more zeal for life than anyone. And to watch the outpouring of love for this person and yet maintain such a positive attitude through that process. And we've seen people, we've followed family members or others that we've known to do that. But his orbit of people that he had connected with just overwhelmed me. And that was the time. So this would have been 2015 or so is when he passed away in 2015. So it would have been prior to that. But, that for me, that time period was such a busy time in my life.
Yeah.
We had kids growing up. I had a vibrant, trying to grow my law practice, trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good community member. And yet this allowed me to kind of step back and use that. And so that phrase has always stuck with me, and I've continued to use it going forward. I pulled a quote from a close friend of his, who's another fellow Bethany graduate and soccer player, a guy by the name of Dan Blank, who has coached Division I and is also an author and goes by the name The Soccer Poet. But, at one point he wrote that what it means to smile deep was the phrase that he described, and the way he described it was, his entire existence was predicated on the solitary principle of making other people happier than they were 10 seconds ago. And that was Paul's life. That was Ace's life.
Yeah.
Anyone who has the nickname Ace, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So I have used that phrase going forward. One, just as a way when I'm leaving someone, hey, smile deep.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times it'll be a conversation starter. They'll say, huh, what? What did you say? And, what's that mean? What's it mean to you? And so it's just a phrase that stuck with me.
I love it. It makes me think about seeing and embracing the joy that's around us that we might otherwise hurry past or overlook or miss.
Yeah. Just to take time, take a pause. Instead of saying goodbye, which seems such a, smile deep, it's almost a protective word to people.
Yeah.
I'll use it at the end of an email sometimes with friends or with others. And it's also a way for me to kind of continue to remember him and others who, have been important in our lives.
Oh, wow.
That I've been anxious about appearing on the main thing somewhat. And part of that was centered around what wisdom do I have? And I started to think about wisdom. Oftentimes, we don't even know when we share wisdom.
Right.
And so wisdom is something received, maybe not given. And I think we all need to remember that we all share wisdom, even if we don't know it. I don't know if Ace really knew he was sharing wisdom, but he was. So.
Yeah. That's cool. This illustration, Smile Deep, your main thing, is in fact a great example of wisdom and the kind of wisdom that delights me and our audience and should be shared.
Yeah, and I would ask people to use it. Part of the reason why I think I wanted to share it was so that others will continue to use that and maybe pick it up as a phrase to do it. And it came. I was talking with my family at home and my daughter Rachel. I was saying, hey, I'm going to do this podcast, and hey, by the way, what kind of wisdom have I given you guys? Of course, it's silent in the room. But Rachel said, this was back to the time when she was just starting, probably late middle school, starting at Charleston Catholic, maybe as a freshman. And she said, you would, when I'd get out of the car in the morning, you'd say, smile deep. Oh. And she goes, what's that mean? And, we hadn't had a lot. I think we probably had conversations back then about it. But that's the other. So I've got to give Rachel a little credit as part of my team to bring that around.
Nice. So. Bob, how can a listener take your main thing, Smile Deep, and go out tomorrow and apply it to their own life?
Well, they can use it.
Okay.
They can say to somebody today and tomorrow, smile deep, and see how, see how people react to that and have a conversation around it.
Yeah.
And ask them, well, what do you think that means? And that may lead to some other curious conversations. Again, I think it's back to the point, maybe it's a cue for ourselves to remain present with people and not always. The world is moving so fast these days. The pace.
Take a moment, slow down.
That's right. As humans, we are, I don't think genetically we have caught up with the pace of change that's been occurring really over the last 50 years, maybe 100 years. And so I think anything that we can do to slow down that process and take a moment with people is important.
Bob, a fascinating conversation. I love your main thing, Smile Deep. Love sharing all of our memories and our connections. As we wrap up here, I just want to give you a moment of open mic time.
Wisdom is something that we all share. It's a valuable tool that connects us and gives us purpose. Be open to receiving wisdom. Think about wisdom. And so again, back to the receiving side. I think it's important for us to take nuggets from different people and be able to share that with each other and pass it along.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom. This has been just so enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So long for now.
Thanks.
Wow, that goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom.